Hi everyone, this is Erin. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is the April Data and Performance Management meeting. Welcome. Today we have a relatively small agenda. I want to talk to the group about a data accuracy dashboard in HMIS, and then I also want to go over the Permanent Supportive Housing and Other Permanent Housing Project Performance Report. Please put your agency name into the chat so we know who's participating. Also, if you can, please either call in or be able to unmute yourself if your computer has a microphone. So we do like to have discussion during this meeting. So if you can do that, that is great. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the data accuracy dashboard. So data quality has multiple components. Completeness is one, which is whether or not a field has been entered, and accuracy is another, which is the data that has been entered correct. And so data accuracy is what we're focusing on with this dashboard. And so we want to develop something so that the agency administrators at your agency are able to look at your data and try and spot issues, like if your project only serves families and they're individuals for some reason, that would be one use of this dashboard. Or if you know you don't serve any children and a child is showing up, something like that. So that's kind of what we're trying to get at with the dashboard. So I have a draft to share, and I would like to get feedback from the group on if this is helpful, or what else can be added. So you should be seeing my dashboard now with these black blobbies, which are project names that I took out. So let me just, okay. So I will go through this dashboard. You will see a few similarities between the user dashboard that we talked about a few months ago. But yes, so think about it from an accuracy perspective. What would you need to see in order to know if there's something wrong with your data that needs to be fixed? So first we have total active enrollments by project. So during whatever the reporting period is, it'll list all the projects at your agency and how many active clients there were. We also have, of those enrollments, the different household types. So, and we can combine these, so it's only households with children, households without children, and with only children, just to clean it up a little bit more. And we can also do this by project type, so you can see that as well. We also have entries during the reporting period. So did they have a project start during the reporting period? Exits during the reporting period, so that did they have an exit during the reporting period, and how many for each project? We also have enrollments by entry type. So are they entering from a homeless situation, an institutional setting, temporary or permanent housing, etc. We can break this down by project also, if that's helpful. Same thing for exits. For those that exited, where are they exiting to? And then to kind of round out the dashboard, we have a demographics section. So how many chronically homeless clients were there? How many veterans? And then breakdowns by race and ethnicity, gender, and age group. And so while you're thinking, also think about the format, if you need this to be by project also, or if you just want to have maybe a filter on the report to do the whole thing by project, we can do that also. So kind of think about that. And then the last three that we have are potential data quality issues. So this top right one is showing the clients with the longest lengths of stay at your agency, so including how many days they were there. Clients that were placed in permanent housing, so this is specific to permanent housing projects, those that have a housing move-in date in a housing project, but it's more than 30 days. That may not be an issue, but it's possible it could be an issue, so we have that there. And then the last one was clients without a service in the past 30 days. So this is meant to help you know maybe if clients need to be exited or if service data entry needs to happen for that client. So I'll give everybody a minute to kind of ponder. I know that's a lot of information that I just kind of threw at you, but feel free to either type in the chat or unmute yourself to kind of get the conversation started.
Hi, friends.
Hi.
I mean, as with everything, I think there's going to be things that are relevant, more relevant than others, I guess, to each agency and to each project. But I like the things kind of at the bottom, like the last couple things that you mentioned about, yeah, the top 10 clients with the longest length of stay, clients without service in 30 days, and then the enrollments, like where they're coming from and where they're exiting to. I think those are, for us specifically, something that would really stand out to us. You know, we try and implement as many data checks as possible throughout the month, but if there were a couple things that were kind of slapping us in the face when we log into HMIS, I think that would be something that we would be more, I don't know, apt to look into more often.
So you said the entry and exit types, the longest length of stay. What was the other one?
The last one, the clients without service in 30 days. I mean, for us, we're doing street outreach mostly. So, you know, we are running reports for inactive clients for over 90 days. And so, you know, like I said, this is a little bit, it's relevant, but it's a little bit irrelevant. Like if for like programs like HDAP or like, you know, our more housing based programs, this services, clients without service in 30 days would be a little bit more applicable. Just depends, I guess, for what type of program you're running. So for us, I think that these, I mean, some of these things are super, you know, exciting and will be really easy for us to look at. And then some of them are kind of, you know, obviously we want to look at things that are like, you know, data not collected and, you know, things that are kind of funky anyway. The other thing, I don't know if there's a way that you could even create anything like this. But, you know, there's just, we are, no matter how many times we train and how many times we repeat it and, you know, shove it down people's throats, you know, the thing that's always, you know, that people can't get is like the disability questions. People just struggle with that like forever and ever, and it's never going to go away. And then, you know, we get a lot of pushback when we try and explain it, like, well, isn't this all self-reported? But yeah, but
yeah. So is it, so can I ask you, is it getting the disability to match whether or not they said yes or no to disability, or is it the follow-up questions to each disability, or both?
It is, if they say, you know, yes, it's that little blurb that y'all added to HMIS, even though it says it right there, like how to answer that first question. You know, some people just don't do it. They just don't read it. And so if the client is saying yes, they're just not understanding that they need to have that long-term question answered as a yes, or the AIDS, HIV, and developmental. So it's just, I think that's always a, you know, something that we're just constantly running reports on and constantly looking at. Which is hard in street outreach because there's just so many touches and there's so many people and there's so many case managers.
Yeah, okay.
So I think that's always like a thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so I don't know if there's like a way to like kind of point that out, but anywhere on here. But
we can definitely look at that.
Okay. But yeah, I think this looks great otherwise.
Catherine said this is great with a little tear. Aw.
Yeah, and I did just want to add, I really do think this is great, especially I'm sure, you know, Cassie was touching on this, but even from our perspective with coordinated entry, there's just so many, you know, enrollments and it can be really difficult when you get those data quality corrections to have that quick turnaround time. And so I think being able to just look at this type of dashboard and use this as a starting point to kind of address some of those different data quality issues would be really helpful. And I think a lot of this, I mean, I don't have the data quality report card memorized, but it seems like this captures a lot of those. It looks like actually this half captures pretty much all of that. Maybe, you know, missing universal data elements like the social or, you know, stuff like that. But I think that this is really, really helpful. And I think, you know, it would be great. Would we be able to like explore from here or like download any type of details reports if we needed to look into this further, or we would just use what's in data analysis to pull that?
We could probably do it either way. It could be like a second dashboard that's like a detail of all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we would for sure want you to have some way to find out who all these specific people are. So we'll figure out the best way to do that.
And then just one other thing, Erin, just thinking of some of the projects in HMIS that have first 5 funding. It might be helpful for those types of projects to be able to see under the all active enrollments by age group, the ability to see that broken out into 0 to 5 and 6 to 17. Just because sometimes like that is something that a lot of those projects do have to report on. And I know at least in the family side of things, there are several projects with first 5 funding. But I don't know if that would be possible or if that's like a change that would have to be made to everyone and it wouldn't be relevant for those other agencies.
If we wanted to keep it one dashboard for everyone, we would have to do it for the age categories for everyone, but I don't think it would be that detrimental because they can still see if they're a child or not, you know, unless anybody has any other thoughts, but I don't think adding another age category would be that much of an issue. Anything else you wanted to add, Catherine?
It's really great, and I appreciate you and the team working on this.
Thanks. And then I see in the chat, Armando thinks that the demographic data graphs are helpful to leave as project specific. A project filter could also be helpful. Okay. So it kind of seems like everyone wants everything at a project level so that you can kind of dig into the details a little bit more. Is that right for everybody?
I'd say so. A filter would be good.
Okay. Are there other things that are not on here? So besides the disability stuff that Cassie mentioned, potentially some more fields from the data quality reports, is there anything else that could be added to this dashboard that would help you figure out if there's some accuracy issues with your data?
Erin, I don't know if I'm getting like too ahead of myself here, but would it be possible, would other people find it helpful if we could kind of see what that percentage is data quality wise, like how it would show on the scorecard, just so that we could kind of see overall or percentage wise if we're meeting the, I'm blanking on the word, but you understand what I'm saying, that score, that percentage, that threshold that needs to be met.
Yeah, I can try. That might be tough because that's looking at a bunch of different fields across like the client records. So we can look at it, but I can't promise it.
No worries. I mean, like I said, I was probably asking for too much. So I knew I was running that risk.
But I like that you dream big. Anything else? I'm also thinking myself if I can think of anything else.
I'm not sure if this would be helpful, but maybe like duplicate enrollments. I don't know how common that is for other people, but sometimes we will see that in some of our projects just because there are multiple people entering information, agencies that, for example, a family could be enrolled twice in coordinated entry system, and ideally that wouldn't happen, but sometimes it does. And, you know, then you would be reporting twice on the same family.
Mm-hmm. We could probably do like how many enrollments does a client have during the reporting period? So it would be like possible duplicates, maybe not for sure duplicates, but yeah, we can do something like that.
That's going to be all our clients. We have, especially like we have this new community care response team pilot program that we're doing out in Anaheim, and it's like we're fielding like dispatch calls for APD and for calls about homeless folks, and we will get like multiple calls per week about the same person, and we'll have to go out there like all the time. Like, I mean, and we have like a 2 shift a day, 7 days a week, like hold on this program. So it'll be like I know that we do, and we're trying to like kind of get this in order, but it'll be like we'll get a call in the morning, we'll get a call at night, and like we'll have to reopen that enrollment, like add services or add like a current living situation or whatever. And for a minute, like it was that they were duplicate enrolling in the same day because it was 2 different case managers, and it was like, you know, they're out there with the cops and they're out there like with the client, and it's just a lot. But we get them like, you know, the same person, the same business owner will be calling every day. And it's like, you don't know, like if the client is saying like, no, I'm not going to leave, or I'm not going to like go to shelter, you know, we get a call the next day, and it's like, sometimes they'll reopen it and sometimes they're good about it and reopen the enrollment from like the day before. And like, sometimes they're just like not thinking to do that. So we get a lot of that.
Yeah. Okay.
So that might look a little crazy for us, but I mean, I think it would be helpful. I know that also when we've had those like duplicate enrollments in a day, like something has been triggered, and I've gotten emails from like Adriana being like, hey, why does this person have 2 enrollments in the same day in the same program? So I don't know what you guys are looking at, but I know that she's definitely reached out like twice about that. So
Yeah, it's usually different things. And so when we do find duplicates, we try to send it to whoever. But yeah, sometimes it's like LSA stuff, sometimes it's project performance. We're also doing uploads to the county database, the Watson Care Manager, or whatever the new name of it is. And they find stuff. So it is a variety of different places that we find duplicate enrollments, but we can try to put something together to consolidate those for you in one place.
and how often would this be updated?
So this dashboard, this would not replace the user dashboard that we already talked about. So that will stay on the home screen. This is something that you would have to run as the agency administrator or the user at your agency. And we can put a reporting period on it so that you can run it for whatever date range that you want. So it would be up to you.
Okay, and how do you think, just knowing that, I mean, I don't necessarily have a ton of issues with Looker, but I know that in the past I have. How do you think, because what I'm getting at is we run a report every single day for Anaheim PD, which is the most obnoxious thing in the world, but it also keeps us like really, really on top of these types of things. So how quickly do you think those would if I ran them in the morning, would they be able to pull from the day before, or would it be like a weird Looker thing where they would be like, maybe this is accurate?
So usually the latest Looker updates is overnight.
Okay.
So if you did something yesterday, it'll be in there today. And sometimes, or usually even same day, you can see the changes. There's just some specific fields that there's a little bit of a delay, but one day to the next, you'll see those changes.
Okay, so something like Catherine was just talking about, like something like that would be actually really helpful for us. I mean, in instances where we are having to look at this stuff on a daily basis, it'd be helpful to kind of catch those things for us anyway.
Okay. Catherine, did you want to add anything? I thought you unmuted earlier.
No, I'm good. Thanks though.
Okay. Anyone else have any other looks or charts that would be helpful for you to review your data accuracy? All right, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. We've had a few new people join since we've started. Welcome, friends. We're just discussing a data accuracy dashboard that the agencies can pull to get a high-level review of their data and see if there's anything that doesn't make sense. For example, if you serve only households with children and then you're seeing households without children, you'd be able to look at this report and then kind of dig in deeper and fix that issue. That's the kind of stuff that we're trying to put on this dashboard. So yes, I'll give it one more minute if anybody's thinking or has anything they want to add, and then we'll move on to the project performance reports. All right. now I'll jump into the PPR. So the report for this month was for permanent supportive housing and other permanent housing projects. The reporting period was February 1st through January 31st of this year. We do have the project level scores, so you can see how you're doing. Feel free to check that out. But I did want to mostly focus on the goals and outcomes report. So, oh, and as you're reviewing your project scores, keep in mind this report is what will be used for the upcoming NOFA, very likely. And so while you can't edit your data at this point if like there was a data entry error, since we already gave the agencies time for that. If you feel like we've calculated anything incorrectly, definitely reach out to us and we can look at that. So keep that in mind as you're reviewing your data, but we're not doing any more corrections on data entry issues where it's only taking what's already in HMIS. All right, so this first page is looking at how the project type performed as a whole. You can see what we've stayed pretty consistent for many of our goals. One of the things I did want to bring up to the group is last year when we talked with the COC board, when we thought we were going to have a NOFA process, we talked with them about performance thresholds, and they wanted to raise the thresholds for both of the income ones as well as the returns. But we ultimately decided not to do that because we had not previously worked with the agencies on it, and we didn't want to kind of spring a new requirement on them without them having a chance to see what their data look like and kind of prepare for that. So they did ask us to meet with the data committee and raise those thresholds. So that's part of what we need to discuss today. So the first one, goal 6 is looking at adults that increase their income while enrolled in the project, and our current threshold is 61%. And we have been pretty close to that threshold over the past couple of years. The COC board has asked us to increase this threshold a little bit. So my recommendation would be maybe 65%. Does anybody have thoughts on that? Everyone feels great about it. Okay, I feel great about it too. So we will increase the threshold for stairs with increased income to 65% in order to kind of meet the request by the COC board. Keep in mind that the COC board is only looking at the COC funded permanent supportive housing projects. And this goal here is including all PSH projects, not just those that are COC funded. So the average for the COC funded is actually a bit higher than this. Next up is goal 7. So it's looking at the same data, but it's only for adults that exited during the reporting period. Our current threshold is 42%, and we've met that pretty easily over the past 2 PPRs. So I would recommend bringing that up to 45%, just to kind of keep in the same process. Does anybody have questions or concerns about raising that threshold?
No. Also, where's Connor? This feels really weird without him.
Well, he's the coordinated entry manager now, so
I know.
he might be too good for us.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, he got a fancy promotion.
Oh, that's right. I gotta send him a message. That's pretty.
Yeah, no, good for him.
I was hoping his new counterpart would be here, but you know.
Who do we know who, does somebody like that's already there like fill his shoes, or did they hire somebody else?
I'm not I don't know their internal organization that well, so I don't know if they hired or promoted, but I think his name is Adam, maybe something with an A, I think. Alan.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as entertaining though without him if he doesn't show up to these meetings. And it's just it's up to me and Rose now.
Yeah, you guys got to carry us through.
Snap. Okay. I propose we do not move the threshold. Just kidding.
Oh, she's making it interesting now.
Oh man. It's funny because you don't even have PSH, Rose.
I know, that's why I have been quiet.
I know, same here. Same here.
All right. Yeah, there's not a ton of PSH projects on right now, but unfortunately we were asked to raise the threshold, so we're kind of moving forward on this.
As somebody that doesn't have PSH, same with Rose, we both say go for it.
All right, if they ask, I'll be like, I don't know, Rose and Cassie.
That's fine.
The other one that they asked us to increase was returns to homelessness. So this is clients that exited to permanent housing and then later returned to the homeless system. We're currently at 10%, and we've done really well on this measure in the past. Only 3% have returned. So I'm thinking that we make the threshold a little more challenging at 7%. Any thoughts?
Go for it.
Yes, John Paul.
Hey, JP.
We got a lot of PSH on the line, but you know what? I'm feeling confident today.
Yes, I like your vibe.
I mean, they're clearly doing well, so why not, right?
I mean, they keep giving us money. I'm not sure if that means anything.
All right, great. So let me keep on going. Oh, the other thing really quickly, for goal 4, we did have an increase in the number of days it's taking households to be placed in units. And the reason for that was we also kind of talked to the COC board about this last year, and we've decided to only include clients that were placed during the reporting period. And the reason that we chose to do that is when the housing move-in date field was first introduced for permanent supportive housing projects, if the client was already enrolled in the project, their housing move-in date was set as their project start date, because that is how the data used to be entered into HMIS. And so if we looked at everybody active in the project, almost all the clients had 0 days between their project start and their housing move-in date. So in order to get a better understanding of how long it's actually taking new clients to be placed in housing units, we're only including those new enrollments during the reporting periods. So that's why we had that increase there. So this number should be a little more stable in the future.
I support this.
Thank you, Cassie. Okie doke. So goal 1, this is looking at clients that are entering from homeless situations. The goal is 100%. And we actually do pretty well on this measure overall, especially for those COC funded projects. But you can see the breakdown for the different, for the project type as a whole, as well as different subpopulations here. The households with children is a little bit lower, which I thought was interesting. I kind of wanted to ask about that, but there's not a ton of PSH providers on now, but I don't know if any of you have any thoughts on why the households with children would be a little bit lower from entering from homelessness.
Do you know if it's, is it everybody in the family is indicating the same entry, a prior experience? Or have you noticed that within a household, sometimes parents have one location and children have a different location?
That actually came up a couple years ago, so now we only look at the head of household's location, which is part of why it was perplexing to me.
Very true.
And these are OPH projects as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the OPH, since they're not HUD funded, they do have a little more flexibility. However, we have been working with all those projects to kind of,
Right.
you know, if you're not serving homeless, should you really be an OPH or should you be other? But
Correct.
yes, that's still possible.
Yeah, and I know that we changed that at Mercy House a long time ago. But so that was kind of, but I don't know any other, like if the other agencies are doing that. So that was kind of going to be my guess. And I do remember, you know, that question being brought up a while back about the children, but yeah, that is pretty strange. And I don't suppose that you know whether or not it's got to be the OPH, right? Like,
That's my suspicion, especially since I think a lot of the PSH is individuals too.
yeah, and the only thing, so these are active clients, right, within the reporting period?
Yes.
I do know, again, there's like a handful that were like grandfathered in at Mercy House.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. How long have they been active?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, they've been active for a long time. A lot of those children are probably aging out as well.
Yeah.
Um,
The other thing I was considering is, so this donut is showing for those not entering from homelessness where they're coming from. And a bunch of them are from permanent housing. We do have a calculation in this measure that if a client, so HUD allows a client to move from one PSH project to another, if needed, like if it's not working out with the provider or whatever the case may be, they do allow that. And we did build that calculation into this measure. However, if the PSH project that the client is moving to doesn't mark that correctly, maybe if they choose some other type of permanent housing situation that's not permanent supportive housing, that could be where these permanent housing entries are coming from.
That totally sounds like a mistake that a housing stability specialist or a housing navigator could make, especially if they just weren't aware of those conditions going into interviewing the household for entry. So that could be where that's coming from. I was also going to suggest what Rosalinda suggested, which was that, of course, kids sometimes reunite with parents who lose custody, and those kids enter from permanent housing places. But yeah, I'm at a loss for this.
you know what? This might also be when they took, when interim housing was taken off the table. So there were people that were bridging at different like locations that technically wouldn't like be like a homeless situation, but were marked as interim at one time.
Okay.
I also, Aaron, do remember Christine, is it Christine or Christina from OCHA?
Christine.
Christine, I always get that mixed up. But I do remember her talking about what you just shared in terms of like program changes.
Mhm.
And I do remember her saying that maybe they had some error in the data because what they thought they were supposed to be doing and what you shared at one point in time was different. So I do remember her bringing that up.
Okay. So if you are a PSH provider and so this measure is on the PPR dashboard that you can pull from HMIS, and if you're not at 100%, look at that prior living situation and make sure that if the client came in from another PSH, that the prior living is set to permanent housing for homeless clients, and that will not be counted against you. All right, next goal is looking at households, how quickly households are being placed in units after they enroll. So this is looking at new enrollments during the reporting period and how long it's taking. And it looks pretty good. The majority of clients are being enrolled or placed in a housing unit within 30 days of enrolling, which is great. So we're doing pretty well in this measure. Next up, we have unit utilization. This is another one that we usually do well on, primarily because the majority of our permanent supportive housing projects are voucher projects. And generally that means that more households can be served than are awarded for on the grant, without going into like a ton of nuance on that. But yes, so you can see how we're performing there. And I was kind of surprised again, households with children is lower. This could also be because of the voucher projects, because there's so much variety in how they serve people and who they serve. They kind of have to report something on the HIC, and then things may or may not change from that point. So that could be why this utilization is lower, is that they were serving less families than they originally said on the HIC and maybe more individuals. So that could also be why the households with children is higher. Goal 6 is looking at clients that or adults that increased their income while they were enrolled in the project. So these clients are still in the project at the end of the reporting period. Our threshold is 61%. We just increased it to 65, and you can kind of see how we're doing for the project type as well as the different subpopulations. And we have our little donut here that shows the breakdown of these clients. So you have your increase, obviously, which is what the performance measure is looking at. And then I was kind of surprised to see an 18% decrease. So this means 18% of clients decreased their income since they started the project enrollment, which I thought was unusual, because I know a lot of these clients are disabled or are otherwise on fixed income, but I thought that would mean that they maintain their income, not decrease. So I don't know if anybody has thoughts on that one.
GR.
But it goes down?
It goes away.
Oh.
They have, yeah, they get it for like maybe 2-3 months. I'm sorry, my dog is whining. Yeah. GR was a huge thing.
Okay, that makes sense then. Is it like 18% of clients, or like, do you have any idea how many clients are getting that?
Not off the top of my head, but I mean, I know it was a lot. When we started the bonus projects, a lot of people came in with GR, you know, and it's only a couple $100, and
Yeah.
but it went, you know, and then they just lose it.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. yeah, you can kind of see the same thing for exits too. So this is looking at adults that exited during the reporting period and whether or not they increased that income. And 17% of adults had a decrease in income. And if that's, if a lot of clients are being served through GR or receiving assistance, that could be a big part of that. Goal 9. This is looking at clients that stabilize in permanent housing. So this is usually a very easy measure for our COC to meet. The reason is because the purpose of permanent supportive housing and other permanent housing is to keep clients there. You don't have to try and exit them. You know, once they're there and they're in a unit, that's your success. So this is looking at clients that either were in a unit at the end of the reporting period, or if they did exit, they exited to a permanent housing situation. So that's why the scores are so high for the project type as well as different subpopulations. And we do have a little chart here for those that do not stabilize in PH, where they're going. So this is clients that were in permanent supportive housing or other permanent housing and then exited to a non-permanent situation. So most of them, or not, yeah, most of them are going back to a homeless situation, which I thought was kind of surprising after being in permanent supportive housing. And then we have institutional or temporary situations, and then missing. And I think we have talked about the missing before, and usually that's due to maybe a disagreement with the client, or the client is otherwise unhappy with the agency and they know they have to leave, but they just disappear, or they don't want to complete an exit interview, and that's why that information is missing. But anybody have any thoughts or ideas on why the homeless number is the highest? No. It's just surprising to me because in order to know they returned to a homeless situation, you had to complete that interview with that client and they had to say, yeah, I'm going back to homelessness, which is surprising to me. But we're missing some of our PSH providers. Christine would be a good one to have on this meeting too. Help, Christine, we need you.
I mean, I know that I've known of maybe a couple clients who have been kicked out of their unit for behavioral issues, which is very, very rare. I think most agencies try and move clients when it doesn't work out for them where they're at. But that might be a situation, or maybe a partner kicks that person out and we still have contact with them and find out that they're living on the street. These are just random scenarios that I kind of remember. And sometimes it's just a choice, honestly. You know, sometimes you just really can't control that they want to just not, you know, it's just not their lifestyle to be living in a house, unfortunately.
But that makes sense though, because it's only like 11 people. So
yeah,
if it's random, then that might be
right,
randomly
exactly.
11 people.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that there's, I mean, this isn't like a huge universe here.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The last measure is looking at returns to homelessness. So this is clients that were placed in permanent housing after leaving a permanent supportive housing or other permanent housing project. So they exited to permanent housing and then they returned to the homeless system and a project in the homeless system. So this Again, we usually do really well in this measure. Our returns are only 3%. We did, the current threshold is 10%. We just talked about reducing it down to 7%. And it still should be pretty easy for this project type to meet. But this donut here is showing where clients are returning to after they were exited from the PSH project and then they later returned. And you can see most of these are permanent supportive housing and other permanent housing projects. And so again, this kind of makes me wonder about the data entry, if they are marking those clients appropriately when they transition from one PSH project to another. Because in addition to what I said earlier about the prior living situation and saying that they came from a PSH project, it's only considered a return if the client exited to permanent housing and then returned to the system more than 14 days after that exit occurred. So I tell you that to tell you this. If you are moving a client from one PSH project to the next, make sure that the exit date of the first project and the start date of the new project are the same date, so that your client is not counted as a return to homelessness, because that could be what's happening with these 5, is that the exit date and the start date in the new project are more than 14 days apart.
I would say even that 6th one, that rapid rehousing one, we all know how long the CES system takes. Like, I don't like this is frustrating. I think that those 6, there's probably something, maybe not the rapid rehousing, but the permanent supportive housing just seems really strange to me.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it's only a few people, but yeah, I'm suspicious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially because the emergency shelter is kind of the one that makes sense, right? If they need to start their assistance over, emergency or maybe street outreach would be the place to start to, get their assistance, maybe get back in coordinated entry. Going straight to PSH, especially knowing that there's a coordinated entry system in place, seems unlikely. So, so that's my tidbit. When you get and this goes for any project type, when you get those returns from homelessness reports from us for the draft data for this PPR process, those fields are the ones to look at. Look at the exit date from your project and the start date in the next project. And if you know they transitioned from like your permanent supportive housing project to another permanent supportive housing project, those dates should be the same. So it involves a little bit of collaboration across agencies potentially, but that's one place you should be looking.
Just a question. So if, for instance, someone left a PSH project, but within that 2 weeks re-enrolled at a shelter, that shelter wouldn't be counted in this calculation, would it?
No, because it was within 2 weeks.
I think I know at least how to explain that on Mercy House's end. If we're ever dealing with an eviction type situation, we usually try to connect them to a shelter as quickly as possible.
Well, also, but this is also only looking at clients that exited to permanent housing.
That exited to permanent housing?
Yeah, so they exited to permanent housing. And
okay,
then,
I misunderstood.
Yeah, and then they later returned to homelessness.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this other little bar chart here is telling us where the initial exit was to. So 3 of the clients exited to either somewhere that they owned or rented. 3 went to a permanent supportive housing, other permanent housing project, and 2 were family or friends. And so these 3 that went to the permanent supportive housing, other permanent housing are the ones that I'm wondering about. Yeah. So that's just something to think about when you're doing your data quality checks. Anybody have any comments or questions about anything on this report, or anything you want to talk about on this? All right. I'm not seeing anybody unmuting. I'm not seeing anybody in the chat. So that was actually what I wanted to talk to the group about today. Before we go, if you have any ideas for future meeting topics that you want to cover, I want to make sure the meeting is still useful for everybody and that we're covering what you want to see. You can either unmute or put it in the chat and we can work those into a future agenda. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up. I'll just hang out for a couple minutes for anybody that puts anything into the chat or anything you want to talk about. We will post, actually the PPRs are already posted. We will post the meeting minutes from this meeting as well as the recording. And the next meeting will be May what? May 13th. So I'll hang out for a minute. But otherwise, that was all I had for today.
Thank you, friend.
Thanks for coming, buddies. Thanks for your feedback.
Almost Friday.
Yeah.
It's Friday.
Question, the meeting on May 13th will be at 1:30 also. Oh, and if you guys weren't on the user meeting yesterday or the last COC board meeting, we're working on an agency access policy as well as a minimum participation requirements policy. The minimum participation requirements is to make sure that users are accessing HMIS and putting in their data. And then the agency access policy is to determine who should have access to HMIS. We've received interest from medical providers, legal services providers, police departments that want to be in HMIS. So this policy is kind of around like, does that make sense for our COC and where we want to go? So if you have interest in that and you want to provide input, which I would recommend since both of these could impact you and your clients, the Policies, Procedures, and Standards Committee is on Tuesday at 3:30, and the link to that meeting is going out in the user meeting minutes. So please attend that if you're interested.
I wish it wasn't so late. It's like, what
I
time?
know. Well, if you can't make it, they said that the slides with the original draft policy are on their website, and we will be accepting feedback until I think it's April 26th. If you just want to review the slides and provide feedback through the help desk.
Yeah, and honestly, it like super affects our agency. It's probably like because of our agency. So I think
it's not just your agency. Can confirm it's not just you guys.
Okay, well, it's definitely is a part of some stuff we're going through right now, as you know. But so I just you know, I will probably not attend, and in hopes of kind of staying anonymous as well. I think that would be better.
Well, feel free to review the slides with the original policy and then put it into the help desk. We will be compiling the feedback and sharing it, but we don't share names or anything when we do that.
Perfect. I think that's better. It's better. I'll
Okay.
do that. Thank you. And now you all know who is going to be reviewing that. So much for anonymity.
Oh man. All right. So I got a question from Crystal. Yes, I can do that for you, Crystal. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So thank you guys so much for being here. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next month.
Bye.
Bye, friends.